actually in Orlando, Florida, and this marks our 5th consecutive house concert on a Thursday night, 8 p.m. US East Coast time, 5 p.m. US West Coast time, and 10 a.m. in Australian East Coast, and in Europe it's like 2 o'clock in the morning European time, and I'm going to hazard a guess that it's 1 p.m. UK time, 1 a.m. UK time. So I'd like to say hi, and thank you very much to Constant from Constant Productions, who is producing tonight's show. So we have it's been a really interesting week. There's been a couple of publications about myself, and in the local papers, one being the Port Orange Observer and the other being the Downtown News, both covering an area of Central Florida. Now, the headline for the articles was I'm actually launching my business around music, business and adventure, an MBA of Life program in the US. But the really wonderful thing is it engages people. And if you're out there and you would love to have Scottish Celtic Fiddle as part of your birthday, your wake celebration, or you're looking at online teaching, or perhaps you're looking at you want to learn Celtic Fiddle, have fun in a Celtic music session anywhere in the world, give me a shout, because the Celtic Fiddle Guru Academy was launched on Sunday the 1st of July. Now, I have just applied to the Guinness Book of Records for the new record of taking Celtic Fiddle inspiration to new heights. And the record was an inspiration for myself, playing the violin over Mount Everest in a plane piloted by Yeti Airlines at a height of 33,000 feet. And the video is actually up on YouTube on my Celtic Fiddle Guru YouTube channel. Now, one of the things that I really love is the idea about inspiration. And when I was at school, I sat in a chemistry teacher's class, and across the top of the blackboard was genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I actually discovered that this was coined by Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. And I think one of the reasons why that phrase, that motto was so important to him, was because of the number of times that he experimented in terms of getting the light bulb actually working. So that saying has actually been with me. I've carried that saying as an inspirational quote for what I'm actually doing now in life. And the word inspiration it's present in each language. Inspirazione is the inspiration is the Italian and also German enunciation of inspiration. And something to boost you, something to really inspire you, something to help you to take your next steps in life lightly. So in order to just let you relax and chill tonight, here are a few Scottish tunes. Now, the first one was a slow air. Slow air is a tune that's played in a really, really slow fashion, and it was called The Flower of the Quern. Then the next one was called Tulkin Lodge, and that was a strathspey. So a strathspey is a type of Scottish dance. And the second tune was written by James Scott Skinner, who's the father of Scottish fiddle playing. And James Scott Skinner did a tour of the US in his 70s. And during this tour, this tour was in fact sponsored by Henry Ford of the Ford Motor Company. And the last tune was a reel called Sir Reginald MacDonald. So when I think about moving countries, so to speak, music has really helped me balance things out and really adjust to being in a new country. And again, I'm finding this with being over in the US. And it's absolutely awesome, in fact. I'm going to use the word awesome several times this evening. And I hope you'll enjoy that fact. And it's awesome to be able to do something that you love and make new friends, join in a community anywhere in the world. And for me, that's what Celtic music enables. And an example of that is that I'm actually heading off to the Grandfather Mountain Highland Games, which are slightly up north from Florida, sort of in the area of the North and South Carolina and Georgia areas. And they host one of the majestic Highland gatherings in the US, and there's going to be over 100 clans there. 100 clans. So a clan, in terms of Celtic history or Scottish history, is a family. For example, my surname is MacLeod, and I'm descended from Leod, who Leod's a minor Norse god, and so Mac is son of. So I'm son of Leod, which is like a Norse god, and the family goes back to 1208. And Olaf the Black, who was the Viking king of the Western Isles at that time, had two sons. One got the island of Lewis off the west coast of Scotland, and the other got the island of Skye. And I'm actually descended from the family from who lived on the island of Skye. And my surname is spelt capital M A C capital L E O D, and that signifies being a descendant of the MacLeods of Skye, whereas capital M A C small L E O D defines being a descendant from the MacLeods of Lewis. And I found that really interesting. And the tartan I'm actually wearing tonight, the kilt I'm wearing tonight, is the Hunting MacLeod tartan. And I made a discovery last year, which was that there are 25 tartans in the MacLeod clan. Can you imagine that? A lot. In fact, a heck of a lot to choose from. Now, I was talking about, for myself, I moved from Scotland to Australia, and then I moved from Australia to the US. And really, each of these moves, and I've actually worked in South Africa as well, and each of these moves has involved a big emotional step in terms of growing up, being in a new environment. I can still, at that time I was actually doing accounting. I'm a former accountant. And so each time I've moved, the numbers are still the same. The way that people do accounting in each country is still the same. But it's just a different environment. And music has helped me to sort of keep that equilibrium, or establish that new equilibrium again. So when I was in South Africa, I used to join in a Celtic music session that was actually in a coffee shop rather than a pub. And this was in Cape Town. At that time, there were only 2 Celtic music sessions in Southern Africa. One was in Zimbabwe, and the other was in Cape Town. And I just managed to actually join in playing a few Celtic music tunes with the Celtic music session in in Cape Town. So what I'd like to do for you just now is just to play a few of those tunes. You might recognise some of them, but there might be some different ones, and these were some of the tunes which I actually played there in Cape Town. So those were, thank you. So those were 3 tunes. The first tune was called The Maid Behind the Bar, which is an Irish tune. The second one was another Irish tune, which I forget the name of. And the third tune was one called The Fairy Dance. Now, imagine being able to do something that you love anywhere in the world. And for me, this is what Celtic music enables. So I can go to a Celtic music session anywhere in the world and join in and have fun. And what I see something similar with Scottish country dancing, the Irish dancing, it's one of the biggest populations of Scottish country dancing in the world is actually in Japan. And for me, that's amazing. So I can actually go with my violin to Japan and join in playing Scottish music or joining in a Celtic music session. How about that? And it's actually a lot of fun. So when I think about the violin, and because I've actually been playing since the age of 7, and I think about what it's actually enabled, it's what it is enabling. It's enabling for me to be with you this evening. Isn't that awesome? And the connections and the community that music builds around the world is absolutely amazing. It really, really is. I was playing at the Port Orange Rotary Club last Friday night, and I had the really wonderful opportunity to sit beside a fellow musician and PhD who had a PhD. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that I said, wasn't it great to see the economic benefits that music brings to the world, and also just how much it brings people together? And the reply I received was, this has been happening for 5,000 years. Quite remarkable. And one of the things that has also happened was I played at the top of one of the tallest lighthouses in Florida on Sunday, last Saturday, my apologies. And that was in fact the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse, which is very near to Daytona Beach. And I climbed 209 steps, which is actually, it was certainly some good exercise, I'll say that. And when I got to the top, the view was just amazing. So if you have a look at some of my Facebook Lives, one of my Facebook Lives, then you can see that on the YouTube channel if you look under travel shows and travel videos, and you'll be absolutely amazed by just the view and seeing what everyone's doing, like people out in boats, some people fishing, some people with their jet skis, some people swimming, having a picnic. And then on Sunday was a boat cruise with the Manatee Scenic Boat Tours. Now they are also based in Ponce Inlet near Daytona Beach, and I can thoroughly recommend a trip with them. And just being on the boat and actually hearing about all the history of the area. We went down the river We saw some dolphins. We saw a lot of variety of birds, and just the actual, the history of the area, and hearing about the houses in New Smyrna Beach. It was really quite remarkable, and the knowledge gained was so much fun. We had so much fun. And I would also say that I played the violin on the boat, and that was really pretty special as well. There's a bit of an adaptation to be had if you're actually on a boat and you're doing something other than just looking at the sea. So I was playing the violin, moving around to sort of keep my balance. And some of the tunes that I actually played were related to the sea. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to play some tunes which are related to the sea. So see if you know them, or if you want to sing along with them. think about these tunes, it takes me to the west coast of Scotland, especially around the area of Argyll. So we have Tynot, which is a village very near to Oban. Oban is the gateway to the Western Isles. And there's a loch that is very, very close to Tynol, and it's called Loch Etive. And this loch, whenever I play these tunes, I think about Loch Etive and just the gentle lapping of the water against the shores. And if you take a boat right up Loch Etive to the head of Loch Etive, you actually find the source of the loch in Glencoe. And Glencoe has been made famous by the song that talks about when the Campbells and the McDonalds got together. And when I think about those tunes as well, I also think about a place near Fort William called Reciple in the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, and I think about Loch Suna and just actually being on a boat, going up to the head of the loch, or it might be going down the loch actually, to see the seals in the rocks. Just it's absolutely mesmerising. And imagine listening to music on a small fishing boat. And if you carry on that small fishing boat, you can journey to Fingall's Cave, which is on the island of Staffa. And Fingall's Cave, Mendelssohn, the classical composer, actually wrote a piece of music around Fingall's Cave. And something which I want to do this year, something which I want to make happen this year in September, because I'll be heading across to Scotland for the Reciple Fiddle Festival, which I started with a couple of friends, Rory and Karen in Reciple. I actually want to play in Fingall's Cave and just record the music. And I'm just imagining the acoustics to be absolutely beautiful. So we're actually, I'm talking a lot about the waves and the lapping of the waves, and sometimes I think the lapping of the waves are a bit like our emotions in a day. There's going to be, depending on the conversations that we have, it could be happy emotions, or we might be in front of a computer, or thinking about we need to get work done. But there's a stillness which music brings to the ambience of wherever we are. And it's just, I find that a really special aspect of music. Now, I had a conversation today about music, and it was around the connection between generations of families. With the advent of the iPhone and other technology, what's actually happening is that people are growing up focusing on technology, focusing on the iPhone, and that's what gets their attention. And so this develops the left-hand side of the brain, the analytical, the logical side of the brain. And what's happening in families is that there's less engagement between the younger generation and the older generation within a family. There's less communication, and this is the way the world is at the moment. The interesting thing is, where music is part of a family, there's actually more communication between the younger generation and the older generation. And I think an example of this was when I was in San Francisco International Airport a year past January, and I was talking with a professor of geology from Berkeley University just outside San Francisco. And we swapped stories, we played a few tunes, and it was really interesting to see all the people who gathered around us. And quite a lot of these people were actually from the younger generation, Generation X, I think. And they were engaged because of the music, because of the conversation, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So anyway, this January I was actually over in San Francisco, and I bumped into the professor and his wife, and we started chatting about communication, about music, and it was really interesting to note that of the large amount of field trips that the professor and his wife had actually done in Italy, Europe, say during the 1980s, on a bus that was going on a geological trip, there was so much chatter and singing between everyone on the bus. You had the students, you had the PhD students, you had the professors, you had the lecturers. Everyone in the bus talked with each other. And then during the 2000s, there was really a silence on the bus because the students and perhaps some of the lecturers as well were focused on their phones. So they didn't speak. There was no engagement. However, the students who also engaged in playing a musical instrument chatted with everyone. They sang, they took part in the conversation, they took part in the communication. And that's really one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. With music. And that's partly why it's so much fun to join in the Celtic music session anywhere in the world. Because there's opportunity to have conversation with people, establish friendships, and exercise both sides of the brain, because music actually exercises, I think it's the right hand side of the brain, and so what's happening is it's the creativity, it's the creative side of people, it's the people wanting to communicate, and all of a sudden you've got the left and the right hand side of the brain working together, which is pretty phenomenal when you start out a youngster and then you're growing up in life, because you're building life skills. Life skills are being built in real time. Anyway, enough of me talking, and I'm going to play you a few more tunes. and it's called The Lights of Lochindal. Now, Lochindal is actually on the island of Islay, and I was very fortunate to meet somebody in Australia, a gentleman by the name of Jamie McKinnon, and his woodwork teacher actually wrote that tune, wrote the tune for the song. Then the second tune was one that's dear to my heart, which is the Flowers of Edinburgh. I went to university in Edinburgh, and I always remember walking up Princess Street from one side of Edinburgh to the other in order to go to university. And my goodness, the weather would be raining, it would be sunny, it would be cloudy, but it was always beautiful walking past Edinburgh Castle. And the last tune I first heard when I heard two of Scotland's greatest fiddle players play at an establishment in Kirriemuir. Kirriemuir is near Dundee and in Scotland, and Kirriemuir is the birthplace of J.M. Barrie, who wrote Peter Pan. And that tune was just seeing it was Ron Ganella, who had very much a classical style Scottish violin player, and Angus Cameron, and it was just amazing to see them play. It was a bit like Yehudi Menuhin and Stefan Grappelli playing together, when they came together to play their different styles of music. And and fortunately I actually taped the event, but I'm so glad I did, because I really was very inspired to hear them both play together. It was just absolutely beautiful. And that's partly why I remember playing, that's partly why I remember the second tune. And those were the tunes that I played. So Sunday this week was the official launch of the Celtic Fiddle Guru Academy. And to find out more, you can go to CelticFiddleGuru.com. Now, please feel free to spread the word. My style of teaching, it's more than the technical. It's also around mindset. And, we can do anything we put our minds to. It's absolutely amazing. It really is. And that's partly why I actually submitted the application to the Guinness World Records for playing the violin over Mount Everest at 33,000 feet in a plane. And I should also say that last year I was in Sumatra, Indonesia, and I was very, very fortunate to go on a trek in the Sumatran jungle. And I took this actual violin with me. And my goodness, the heat was holy smoke. It was really, really hot. And I had the chance to jam with local musicians who also just happened to be the tour guides. And it was Raw Wildlife Tours who actually took the tour. The guys from Raw Wildlife Tours took me on the tour, my trip to Sumatran jungle. And it was absolutely awesome to hear how many of these guides were musicians. And there was one jamming session where it was myself, Jason, who played bongo drums on the edge of a river, and myself. And I'm just going to play what the jamming happened then. So if you want to see what actually took place, then go to the YouTube channel, the Celtic Fiddle Guru YouTube channel. So that tune was called, so the first part was me improvising, and so you can imagine Jason on the drums and myself improvising and just looking for a rhythm, looking for a beat. And then I found that it matched this tune, the rhythm matched this tune called The Kilt Is My Delight, and I'm actually wearing a kilt this evening. So can you imagine being in the Sumatran jungle and hearing Jimi Hendrix or Marley, Mr. Bob Marley? Well, this was the standard of the musicianship. It was absolutely incredible.